So I'll show you how to Dockerize a Node.js application. So the very basic you need is to have Docker installed, running, and you have to be signed in. So this is my Docker, I've downloaded already, and it shows here that I'm signed in. After that, I suggest you to use Visual Code because it has a user interface to see the Docker images and containers. How do you get that user interface? It's just a Visual Code plugin. You go to the plugin section, you search for Docker, you find it there, and you install it. I have it already installed. After you have done these two steps, downloading Docker and getting the Docker extension on Visual Code, you go to your file structure. Let's say if you're working on the backend of our application, you open the backend folder. After you have opened the backend folder, you create a Docker file. This is the Docker file. You just do File, New File, and you name the file Docker file. Well, that's it. And I've already done it. I guess you can do that part very easy. So now, inside the Docker file, you have to write a few commands. What are these commands? The first one, line number 1, it shows that we are starting the application from Node version 10. So what this is going to do is going to download all what's needed for Node to run in Docker. The second step is to define a work directory. This is the file structure of the Docker machine. So you have user, src, and app. Once you define a working directory, you telling your Docker that's where is my root, my base, where I'm gonna do everything inside the app folder. So everything you do under this line, it's gonna happen in the app folder. Next, we're gonna copy first the package log.json and package.json because they hold all the dependencies that the Node application needs. The star means that download everything that starts with package. What it does, it takes it from your source, which is this two here, package log.json and package.json, and this is the Docker file that we have open on the right side. So after copying these two files to the root directory, which is the app, this is the command to do that, we run npm install. Think of it at this point that you are in the Docker machine and you writing commands, but since you have no access to it, I mean you can have access to it if you SSH to it, but the Docker file is going to do it for you. So you do run npm install, you write this and it's going to be executed later. The third step would be copy everything that you have in your folder structure inside the backend to the root of your Docker working directory. So this is a command that you use. The dot means current directory here at the host, which is your Windows or Mac, and the second dot means the current directory in the Docker machine. And we copy the package.json first because that's a good practice to install the dependencies before you copy all the files. And you're going to say, what about Node modules? We don't want to copy the Node modules because we're doing npm install. All the Node modules and the folders that we don't want to copy to Docker, we put them in the Docker ignore. So I don't want the Node modules, I don't want this Nginx server because I'm just testing that and I don't want to put it on the Docker, and I don't want the IDE stuff. So this is all done in Docker ignore. It's same like git ignore. Let's go back to the Docker file. The third step, the one before last step, would be to expose the ports. Because if you check my server.js, it's gonna run on port 3000, but not this port here, this is an OR. My port is defined in process.environment.port, which is this file here. So in server.js, I take that value 3000 and I take a host which is localhost or 0.0.0.0, and you run the app, but in the Docker. And how you do that? You declare it as a command. cmd, the first part of the command is npm, and the second value is start. So whatever commands you want to do, you can do it this way also. With cmd you do npm start. So at this point in time you have declared everything that you want to happen when you run this Docker file. So now, how are we gonna make this work? I have a readme file here, which I'm gonna copy paste the commands to build the image first from the Docker file. And what you do is this command here, and you go to your terminal and you paste it. What this is doing is building. T stands for tag, and you put your username. It's just a naming thing, so you name it whatever you want to name it, or don't put a username at all. We'll just name it Mike. Parakeet node, and don't forget the dot at the end. That's how you build an image. An image is like, I would say, a representation of your application in Docker. You press that, and what that is doing is going through all the steps that you declared in the Docker file. From Node 10, it did it fast because for me it's cached, I've done it before, but normally when you do it the first time, it's going to take time to download Node and everything else. Step 1 of 7 is download Node. Step 2 of 7, declare the working directory. The third step is to copy package.json into the working directory, and it says here using cache, that's why it's happening fast. The fourth step is to run npm install to install all the dependencies that we put in package.json. The fifth step is to copy everything else from your folder structure in your computer to the Docker machine. After we exposing port 3000, because that's the port that we have to run our app. And after that, we do npm start to actually run the app. And after we have built the image, we have to build the container. And we have another command for that. This one here. What we're saying here is docker run, because we created like the application with all the commands that we got. But when you do docker run, you actually execute it. I don't know if execute is the right word, but I think you understand me. So you do docker run, you do the -p to tell it the ports that talk to each other. So we have 4000 on our host machine, which in my case is my MacBook, and 3000 in the Docker machine. So whenever I visit 4000 in my machine, it's going to talk to 3000 in the Docker machine. -d means in detached mode. When you run it with -d, it means it's going to run in the background. Even if you close the terminal or the Visual Code application, the Docker image is going to still run. The Docker container, sorry. And here I give it the name, like which image do I want to run. And we said it's not a Glenn, we named it Mike. So if you don't remember it, what you named it, when you did the Docker build, okay, it's up here. You paste that, and that's the image that we want to run. I saw it up there, but you can also use the Docker plugin that I was talking about. In here you see all the containers and all the images. It's pretty cool. So there is a few other images that I've created before, and we want to run this image, this representation of our application. So I declare it here and I press enter. Boom. Now we have Mike stopped because Eglin is running already from before. So I'll just stop mine and run Mike. If you didn't have the same application running the same ports, you don't even have to do this part from the user interface of the Docker plugin in Visual Code. But since I had it busy, my ports, it couldn't start, well, I stopped the other one, I started this. So now what happened? Now it's running in Docker. I do localhost, we said 4000, because that's the port in my computer, that's what I have access for, but that port connects to 3000 inside a Docker machine, because we exposed it. Hello packet, boom, come back. Okay, that's about it. The rest you can Google.